Good evening and thank you for joining us on this Tuesday. You're watching the 9 at Night. I'm Stephania Jimenez. A $12 million deficit. That is what the South San Antonio Independent School District is facing. Now, financial struggles are really nothing new for South San, and the district is now looking at ways to solve this latest problem. RJ Marquez explains how the district got here and what a local teachers association believes can be done about it.
This video is from a special community meeting South San Antonio ISD held on Monday to let people know about the financial issues facing the district.
But this is the data that we cannot deny.
Officials say the district is looking at a reported $12 million deficit and has seen a 20% decline in student enrollment in the past 10 years.
Our district doesn't seem to realize that they are in competition. And if you're in competition, you go out and bring those students back.
Tom Cummings is the executive director for the South San Antonio American Federation of Teachers. He says they are aware of the deficit but feel like drastic measures like consolidating or closing schools should not be taken.
We're opposed to closing schools. We are very much in favor of neighborhood schools.
District officials told people in the meeting it's operating below capacity and reopening schools like West Campus cost them millions of dollars. Cummins says that those are legitimate concerns but wants the district to seek more money from the Texas legislature
to rehabilitate those schools and draw the students back in. West Campus is a growing entity. Eventually, it will fill those buildings.
He also wants the district to consider a tax reauthorization election.
If it was passed by the community, would bring in approximately $7 million a year. Property taxes would have gone up approximately $5 to $7 a month per household.
Another option discussed in that meeting was to reduce salaries or eliminate positions within the district altogether. Now, no decisions have been made, and the district will hold another community meeting on March 6th. The district superintendent also declined to comment to us earlier today. RJ Marquez, KSAT 12 News.
In other news now, the fight to change gun laws was really front and center today at the state capitol as the Coalition to Prevent Gun Violence rallied in Austin. They're calling this a day of advocacy. Lawmakers and advocates for gun violence prevention worked alongside families who have lost people to gun violence, and they took their concerns, as you can see, inside the building. The families went to lawmakers' offices asking them to support raising the age to buy assault-style weapons to 21. Also, they want them to increase background checks. Velma Duran lost her sister, Irma Garcia, in the Uvalde shooting, and in the 9 months since, she says she's heartbroken because nothing's changed.
I'm angry, I'm tired, and I'm really hurt that so many people are failing us day after day after day. The normalizing of this situation, of this epidemic of gun violence, needs to stop.
Velma Duran is also a teacher. She says that lawmakers should also pass legislation to make schools safer. 60 rounds of gunfire, a targeted drive-by shooting believed to result in one man's death this afternoon. San Antonio police say another man is in the hospital after that shooting along Burnett Street near the AT&T Center. San Antonio Police Chief William McManus said the victims were standing near the food mart when suspects in a white car unloaded more than 60 shots by what police believe was a long gun. Right now, investigators don't know if there was more than one shooter.
We're seeing a lot of violence around the city. I don't know there's any place that's immune from it. But as I've said before, that a lot of this, and there are exceptions, a lot of this is resulting from risky behavior.
Right now, the Bexar County Medical Examiner is working to identify the man who died at the hospital. As for the other victim, we don't know yet how he's doing tonight. Another shooting yet ended in a fire and a 54-year-old man's death. Now, right now, we're working to learn that man's name. Meanwhile, investigators are also trying to figure out exactly what happened. Details are still murky. It started around 4 o'clock this morning when a neighbor reported hearing gunshots and a car speeding out of an apartment complex. That was along Barrington Street near Starcrest and Loop 410. When officers got to the place, they say smoke was coming from an apartment, so they called the fire department. And once firefighters cleared the smoke, they found a man's body inside one of those apartments with multiple gunshot wounds.
Once they started removing the victim, they realized the multiple gunshot wounds, so they left the victim in place for the investigation.
At last check, detectives were trying to get security footage from neighbors to try and piece this together. Also tonight, Crime Stoppers needs your help. It's trying to solve the man's murder before the case turns a year old. Maurice Duche Jones was found dead last June inside of his home. It happened at the Glendora Apartments in between Eisenhower and Ritterman Roads on the northeast side. Officers found Jones with multiple gunshot wounds, so they're sharing these surveillance photos to solve the murder. So if you know who these men are on your screen or where they are, call 210-224-STOP. Sorry to tell you this, but your electricity bills are going to go up. CPS last raised its fees last March. That's when the company raised the base rate by just under 4%. At the same time, the utility also increased the fuel adjustment charge to recover costs from the 2021 February freeze. But even a year ago, the plan had been to continue to raise rates in 2024 and 2026. The placeholder figure that officials used at the time for the plan increases was 5.5%. Now, we are expecting prices to increase next year, but at this point, we don't know by how much.
That's what our teams are doing here in the spring and summer, is sharpening our pencil and being able to have that discussion later in the year.
So last year's base rate hike was to pay for staffing, technology improvements, also infrastructure. CPS's chief financial officer says that all of those reasons could also explain next year's planned increase. Now, meteorologist Adam Caskey joins us to explain temperatures and what the weather is going to be like for Wednesday.
Increasing humidity tonight, leading to some fog to start the day tomorrow. And see that 10% chance of rain? It's just for some mist and drizzle. That's about it. Otherwise, reduced visibility from the fog, 66 at 7 a.m. By noon, we start to clear out, 82 degrees, and then 90 for the high temperature. That's what we're forecasting. Should that verify, it would be a new record high for the day, breaking the old record by 1 degree. But mid-90s as you get south and west of San Antonio, closer to the Rio Grande. High temperatures there, mid-90s. By Thursday, very similar morning fog, 90 degrees afternoon high temperature with sunshine later in the day. Things change, though, around 6 p.m. on Thursday. That's when our next cold front arrives. It could bring us a few storms, a narrow window between about 4 p.m. and 7 p.m. of a few storms popping up. But the big headline will be the wind. Some gusts possibly in excess of 50 miles per hour Thursday evening all the way through Friday morning, then noticeably cooler Friday through the weekend.
Now, some Americans rallied outside the Supreme Court today, demanding that the justices not strike down President Biden's promise to erase $500 billion in student loan debt. Now, at the heart of today's hearing are 2 legal challenges from 2 borrowers and 6 states, and they argue that the plan to use tax dollars to pay off the debts is an abuse of presidential power, and that's going to harm states that benefited from the interest on the loans. Now, the counter argument is the HEROES Act, which allows the president to waive or modify federal student loan payments after emergencies like the pandemic. Now, we're probably not going to see a decision from the court until late May.
Shouldn't be done. We're counting on the Supreme Court to rule the right way.
Listen to the needs of millions of struggling people who want a middle-class life but are buried in debt. Do the right thing.
Now, the program would cancel as much as $20,000 in federal student loan debt for qualifying borrowers. The Supreme Court should reach a decision by this summer. After that, people are going to start repaying their federal loans either 60 days after the court's decision or 60 days after June 30th, whichever comes first. So here's what we're working on for you tonight on the Night Beat. Crime and violence have been on the rise here in San Antonio. You know that from our stories earlier. It's beginning to affect our neighboring towns as well. Tonight, how law enforcement officers in smaller towns bordering San Antonio are tackling the spillover in crime. Also, it's been a week since a truck smashed into a pedestrian bridge on Castroville Road, which caused it to collapse. Now the city says it plans to rebuild it. So we'll tell you what steps are being taken before the construction project begins. That is coming up on the Night Beat, which is at 10 o'clock. As for right now, we are out of time. The 9 at Night returns tomorrow. Have a lovely night.